Hello, I'm Christina Sharp, business instructor at MiraCosta College. And as part of MiraCosta's Leader in Residence program, we're bringing together business leaders and business students. Our first leader is Ken Bertossi, who retired from Hughes Aircraft after an impressive career as an accountant and controller. And Ken and I are here with accounting student Ryan Dokich and management and communications student Charity Singleton. And we're going to talk about leadership and some lessons that Ken may have to pass on to a new generation of business and corporate leaders. And so I wanted to start, first of all, Ken, with maybe you could tell Ryan and Charity a little bit about yourselves.
I was from the upper poor in Minnesota, which is kind of interesting, born in the Great Depression. And so I learned to be frugal very early in my life and have become a multimillionaire in the process. I studied hard and got some good grades in college and had a business career and have invested the rest of my life.
Well, let's jump right into your business career, and maybe, Charity, I know you had a question about values.
Yeah, Ken, I was wondering, what was the one value that served you the best in your career as a leader?
As a financial leader, I made sure that all the people that worked for me were focused on the financial aspect of what we were doing, and that they did everything that I asked them to do thoroughly.
And Ryan, you had a question about challenges, right?
Yeah, Ken, actually I was wondering, I know that you had a dual major in engineering and in accounting, and then after that you also attained your CPA. How valuable was that broad knowledge base and education base in your career? I
guess that knowledge base was good because it was filling my brain up with a lot of things. But when I couldn't get an engineering job in California, I went for a business job, and the business job was probably a smarter choice because I became financially literate and have done very well in my investments after retirement. So I think financial education is probably more important than any education we have.
Now, how old were you when you first considered yourself a success in your career, and what would you define a success as?
I guess I define success as being motivated at what we're doing. And I guess that since health, wealth, and purpose in life are the most important things, I discovered that accounting has to do with wealth, and financial literacy has to do with wealth. And I never smoked, so how do I do wealth? Accounting told me how to do that. And I've done my tax return for my whole life. I don't pay anybody to do it because it's education all my life.
I'm going to ask you then, so for financial literacy, do you think it's important then that every college student become financially literate?
Absolutely. You have your formative years up to about 25. Then you have your productive years, and you better be financially literate in your productive years and really work well for that company. And then your purpose years, your last 25 years out of 100, how do you use that wealth for a good purpose? And with me, it's going to be MiraCosta College, family and MiraCosta College. So we have grandchildren and nieces and nephews in the family, and MiraCosta College is educating young people, getting their brain working.
If you could, what would you do differently? If there was anything that you could look back on and say, you can do that differently, what would it be?
I would be born in California instead of Minnesota. That's
agree with
number
you.
one. And if you're not born in a state with good weather, then move to that. So that's the second thing.
So what advice do you have for students who are still in college?
Focus on that education. Get the best possible grades you can. Try to become an A student. Forget about everything else and focus on getting those grades, because those grades will get you to your next job. And my grades got me into the CPA firm, and the grades got me into Hughes Aircraft.
Ken, when you were still working with Hughes Aircraft, what did you look for when hiring a new employee that was a recent college graduate?
I had nothing to do with hiring employees. Because of my position and the importance of financial, the corporate office hired highly educated young people to work for me.
So they were placed with you.
They were placed with
How
me.
interesting. Huh.
So I had the cream of the crop
Wow.
in the financial area, and we dealt with program managers, division managers, kept the company accounting system consistent with the rules of the Defense Department, and compliance with Defense Department with rules were very important in a defense company. So, but I had the cream of the crop.
Yeah. Wow. That's something that's, certainly different from Ken's time in corporate America versus where we're at today, because, now you would apply and you're not going to get the job without speaking to the person who is going to be your manager. And so there's a very important piece that you would have now, and that would be the role of the hiring manager. Human resources wouldn't simply send somebody to you.
Yeah.
They would, without your approval, without your
Right.
tacit, yes, this is somebody that's going to work well in our organization and is going to work
Yeah.
for us. Let me transition us a little bit to a question that I think most college students have, which is, how do I know if I'm selecting the right career? How did you know when you went into accounting that it was going to be the right career for you?
Well, I started studying engineering and business. Why did I study business? Because in 1950, a college education was a 5-year project in the University of Minnesota, 4 years of engineering and 1 year of humanities, because they wanted to make engineers into human beings. But if you were
Not a bad idea.
if you were somewhere near the top of your class, I'd say the top 5 or 10%, I don't know what it was, you were offered to get out of humanities and get a second degree for the price of one. Wow. And for the 5 years. So I got 2 degrees with distinction in the 5 years that I could have become a human being. Okay, those 2 degrees got me a job with a CPA firm that could put me out in California where I wanted to go.
Right.
So those 2 degrees with distinction, so get your degrees with the highest grades you can get possible.
So 2 degrees, that's a lot of classes. What was the best class that you took in college, your favorite class?
I didn't have a favorite class.
Did you like them all? Or did you hate them all?
All I was really doing was trying to get good grades. I think getting good grades in school gets you privileges later on. I can't say really what they are, but if you perform well in your education, whatever it is, you'll probably perform really well in what you do.
So let me ask you this, because did we talk about when the age that Ken first felt successful?
Yeah.
And
Well, I'd say when I joined Hughes after the CPA firm in Linden Industries, with the CPA firm, I retired and I said, I'm going fishing. I've got my CPA. I'm going to Minnesota and I'm going fishing. And I got a phone call from Linden Industries, one of our big audit clients. And Linden Industries was growing tremendously. And they said, Ken, you're not going fishing. We want you to start next week. We're going to put you in charge of the audit and accounting system. And after 3 years at Linden, I was so young. Let's see, that was 26 when I joined Linden. When I was 29, they hired in a guy in his 40s to be my boss. And I thought, this isn't what I want. So I sent my resume to Hughes Aircraft to the corporate office. They said, Ken, we'll hire you. Don't have a job for you, but we'll hire you.
Well, that's a pretty good sign that you're successful when somebody wants to hire you, even though they don't quite have the place for you yet.
Right.
They'll make the
So I
job for
became the
you.
youngest division controller at age 30 in Hughes Aircraft.
Okay, so we've got 30, where you're the youngest division controller. And then you said you started investing at 57?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
30 and 57
I didn't make a lot of
is...
money at Hughes. In fact, my highest pay when I was 57 was, I think, about just around $60,000 a year, which today you can't live on $60,000. But anyway, and from there I invested, and that's where I made my millions.
So really, if we're telling your story, it's good grades, doing well in school, and investment.
Wise investment.
Wise investment.
I learned about real estate very young, and that was all by accident.
Well, the one thing that they say about real estate, not making any more of it. So it's
Location,
always, yep.
It's limited in size.
Mm-hmm.
We can't live in the ocean. We can't live in space yet. And so then if it's real estate, location, location, location.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You would not like to live in northern Canada if you don't like snow. The polar bears like northern Canada. I didn't like Minnesota because of the snow. California, San Diego County is probably the best weather of any county in the whole United States. We don't have hurricanes, as long as you live 31 feet above sea level. Because if you live in Florida, the weather's good, but Florida will be underwater in the next 500 years.
When you were working in the accounting field at Hughes, did the engineering knowledge that you had help you understand your accounting in that particular industry?
My engineering knowledge allowed me to become very easy to deal with program managers of engineering programs. And of course, defense is all engineering.
It's almost like with that engineering knowledge, so you're the accountant, you're the specialist in that area, but the engineers are the specialists in their area.
I was accepted by the engineers.
You spoke their language.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
the engineers were running the company, so this dumb bean counter. In fact, I had a cap that said bean counter, head bean counter.
All right.
So with my engineering degree, I think that helped me in my business career. And maybe without that engineering, I wouldn't have done as well.
With your career and a wife and a family, how was it that you managed your time with being so successful in working financially in engineering? Was that a challenge?
Well, my father was an only child. I was an only child. I didn't have any children. I'm going to marry a gal that's well educated, and she was working as as the administrator and secretary to a major corporation in Beverly Hills.
So you were able to manage
All
your
right.
career because it was just you and your wife.
Well, and this is a great place for us to kind of end off,
Yeah.
because I know that you and Marie in our third segment are going to talk a little bit more about your relationship and how you met.
Okay.
And that's about all we have time for this part of our discussion. I want to thank you, Charity and Ryan and Ken, for this enlightening discussion and for sharing your wisdom with a new generation of business leaders. I thank you so much.
I hope I got a B+ at least, and maybe if I was really lucky, an A.
All right.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.